here, and the recording will only be myself and Hongwei, presumably. If you ask questions, if you will be in the recording. But other than that, if you don't want to be, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will ask them, or you can wait until we end the recording. You can probably note your question somewhere. Wait until we've stopped the recording, and then feel free to ask your questions then. I am PJ Samuels, and we are Shaded Writers. And hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And hi, Hongwei. Particular pleasure for having you here. And you, Ashley. Thank you. Same. Hongwei, this book, it's such a tender piece of literature, and I kept going back to poems that I've read before and seeing them talk to each other across pages, and I keep going back. I love the tracing of different tensions of belonging and the push and pull of how that comes up against your pride that comes out in being a Nottingham local and a Chinese national, and the way your body takes up space in various landscapes that you inhabit, and how racism shows up overtly and covertly, and where sexuality swims in that soup. I love the hard opening of Chinese Genesis almost as a nod. You know, for me, it feels like a birthing and an anchoring in your Chinese nest as a grounding influence of self. What are your thoughts on how the collection is ordered? What's the relationship of poems that sit beside each other? Is it meant to be read front to back, or is it a dipping book? And also, as part of talking about that a little bit, can you please read us Chinese Genesis?
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you very much, PJ, for your very kind words, and Tara for the very kind introduction. This is my second time with Shaded Writers. The first time I remember it was with for the Passion of the Rabbit God, and thank both of you for creating such a platform for QT Talk writers, which is really important. And I shall also, take this opportunity to say hello and thanks to Ashley, my editor, who is here. Ashley has been a strong advocate of marginalized voices, and in fact, Poetic Edge Publishers, is set up to support marginalized writers and writers of disability, queer and trans writers, and so on. So thank all of you for the brilliant work. This book wouldn't have existed without all your help and support. So I'll probably say a few words about the organizing principle of the book. And of course, last year, at the end of last year, when I submitted the book manuscript to Ashley, the manuscript doesn't look this way, actually. It was much more chaotic than this. But Ashley and I, really worked very hard to get those poems in the order that it is now. So thank you, Ashley, for all the help and support. So as in now, the book is divided into 4 parts. So part 1 is primarily about life in China and a home visit to China. And the last part is a set of poems about life in Nottingham. And you'll recognize some familiar references, such as Ratcliffe Power Station, Beeston Beeman, and so on and so forth. So in a way, this is also a very local as well as a very transnational book. And the middle sections are 2 sequences of love poems describing a relationship, roughly based on my own experience. But as you know, that poems are a particular type of creative writing. So there is a sense of poetic license in it. I might have merged my different dating experiences into a sequence, but that's just one of those things. So that's, in a way, the organizing principle. And in between those sections, I have some so-called rewriting of Chinese myths and fairy tales and legends, etc. For example, the first part starts with Genesis, and in a way, actually, it is followed by the kind of life in China, and the last part is opened by Mulan, which many of you know about, which is a woman hero who disguised himself as a man. In a way, they are my trans hero, and it ends with a guide to the peach blossom garden, which is also a kind of rewriting of a classical Chinese prose text. So that's essentially the guiding principle. So it follows a person's migration journey from China to the UK, and it also follows the development of an intercultural relationship, two people from meeting the first time to okay. Probably I'm giving out too much information, to breaking up at some point. So as some relationships do. So and of theoretically, I mean, you should be reading actually from the beginning to end, because when we designed the poems, we designed it to be read as a sequence. I mean, to be telling a story. However, I also think that because those poems are written in different times, reflecting on different moods and modes, so essentially, I mean, they can also be read, I mean, separately, and you can. Well, my reading habit is usually, for first reading, I usually read from cover to cover, and then I'll just open up a random page and then let the poem surprise me. But the choice is yours. You can read in any order you want. And we decided to start the collection with the Chinese Genesis, and most people are familiar probably with the biblical story of the Genesis. But Chinese Genesis is slightly similar, but it also is different. And with this poem, I want to point out some of the recurring themes in this book. In particular, the yellow, the color yellow. This is because the yellow cover, I mean, is a very kind of dominant color for this book. I mean, it has so many associations which I explore in this book. But one of the associations is a kind of racist association. So historically, people have been divided by some pseudoscience into different skin colors. For example, white, black, yellow, red, and brown, etc. And now it's very common for us to say black and brown people, but very few people say yellow people. When yellow people is spoken, it's usually spoken, I mean, in a derogative way. For example, yellow peril, which refers to the kind of the threat of East Asians to the West, and yellow fever, which is a disease which is not so nice either. So in a way, actually, I really want to rewrite some of the kind of stereotypical racist tropes. Yellow here is not seen as a kind of racial and racist color, but as a celebration of queer East Asian identity. And this is what I'm trying to do through the whole book. So I'll read the poem Chinese Genesis. I'll share the screen because when I listen to reading, I like to read along, but I know you have people have different reading habits. But Chinese Genesis, after Shanhai Jing, a 4th century BCE classical Chinese text. Han Gu slashes open the chaotic cosmos with a silver sword, splits the world into night and day. Nuwa dips handfuls of soil into the river, molds them into figurines of various shapes and sizes. The god of the wind whistles past, breathes life into them. The goddess of the rain descends, gifts them with feelings. Nuwa is happy. She calls these creatures Ren, human beings. She hasn't expected, nor can she ever imagine, these beings will later be divided into men and women, straight and gay, black and white and brown and yellow. So essentially, that's the first poem with which I'm introducing the color schemes as well as racial and ethnic identities in this book.
which takes us straight into the cover image and the title poem. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about your title poem, and read it for us, about your cover image, how you chose it? Well,
Yeah.
whatever it is you want to tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. Let me talk about the cover image first. I love this cover image. So thanks to the wonderful design of Ashley. So Ashley is a great designer. And in fact, this picture, which is so prominent now, only came at the last minute. This summer, this August, I was in China and I was visiting a Chinese queer archive. And the curator actually showed me around his collections. And one of the pictures is this picture by a Chinese queer artist, Bi Jianye. So when I saw this, I was so excited. I told them that I'm writing a book on bananas. This is exactly what I wanted. And the curator was very supportive, and he helped me connect with a poet, with an artist, and the artist, Bi Jianye, kindly agreed for us to use this as a cover image. So I'm really grateful. But well, besides this, we also have another version of the design, which has pink flower as background, and which also has a banana in it. And that cover design is also really good. But I think that in this case, I mean, I really want to provide a platform for queer artists to show their artwork. So in a way, actually, we end up choosing this one. But I'm grateful to both Ashley and Bi Jianye for their excellent artwork. So turning to that poem. So a bit of background. So in English vernacular, at least in the East Asian communities, banana is usually a derogatory term for people who live in the West or who are born in the West. So East Asians born in the West or living in the West for a long time, presumably their skin is still yellow, but somehow their heart becomes white. They have internalized Western values. So in Asia, when this term was used, people usually say that, okay, they have been completely either brainwashed or they have been transformed and they forget who they are. But I'm trying to think about what's wrong with a banana? Banana is nice. I'm always a big fan of bananas, etc. So I want to use this book actually to rectify the reputation of banana. I really want to say that it's okay to be someone of the East Asian diaspora. It's okay actually not to be authentically Asian. It's okay actually not to fit in both Asian societies and Western societies. Let's celebrate this kind of hybridity, this bantness. So that's the poem Self-Portrait as a Banana. Oops, just a minute. Think of myself as a banana. Yellow skin, white flesh, glaze of tropical sun, fragrance of autumnal breeze. Not as yellow as in yellow fever or yellow peril, but as yellow as a sunflower admiring the golden light, a cap zigzagging along grey Big Apple streets, a summer rain hibernating in the deep blue sea. Not as white as in whitewash or white privilege, but as white as a lotus flower serenading the moon, a polar bear melting the Arctic skyline, a vast stretch of snow sharpening the crisp winter air. If I must choose to be one, let me be as bent, bastard, queer as a banana. My skin is in the game. Take care where you step.
Ooh,
Thanks
I
very
feel
much.
a sense. I feel a sense of wanting to let that sit for a moment with us. Yes, yes, yes. Take care where you step. Ooh, thank you. What are your thoughts on form? And I want to invite you to probably read us a couple poems that are different forms. Tell us about the form. What about the content that invited the form, or did the form invite the content? And how did you decide that that's a form it should live in? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I started writing poetry at the beginning of the pandemic. At that time, I used a free form. Well, I haven't been exposed to many poetic forms of being a very new poet. And as time goes on, after I've read many people's poems, I start to appreciate actually the form, because a form is sometimes a message, and it sends a very strong and powerful message. And in particular for queer of people poets, queer of color poets, I think it's particularly important for us to reclaim some traditional forms that are seen as white and Eurocentric, etc., etc. So I think I'll probably choose two poems to demonstrate this. One is a sonnet. So a sonnet is a traditional form for love poems, and most people are probably familiar with Shakespearean sonnet or Spenser sonnet, etc., Petrarchan sonnet. And I'm using this sonnet form to talk about an experience of clubbing, an experience of queer love that has traditionally actually not been written much in the kind of conventional forms. So it's called The Morning Has Come. It's written actually after a clubbing night. The water is running, the shaver is humming. I feel its gentle kiss on my skin. My hand still carries a faded mark from last night, the childish drawing of a bouncer. My hips are sore, my legs let heavy. As I refused to stay still on the dance floor, your eyes burned through me, the air was electric. My knees carry the weight and heat of your palm while we sit on the tram, oblivious of what others might say or think. My tongue keeps that fresh taste of you, a peppermint sprouting in my stomach. My skin treasures every collision of yours, like a boat missing every rock of the waves. Now your cologne lingers in the air, your face lucid in my head, but you are not here. How will my body remember you? So that's a sonnet form, or writing a kind of very contemporary subject of queer clubbing, of queer relationship. But at the same time, it has got the kind of intensity of a kind of love poem. And the next poem I'm going to share is called, the poetic form is called Burning Heiben. It was written actually during a workshop led by Adam Lowe. I think both PG and Tara have participated, and each of us have written a Burning Heiben. And Tara's Burning Heiben is in their book. So this form is essentially writing it as a text and then use blackout techniques to rewrite this or to black out some of the bits. It's meant to imitate actually the process of memory, how memory fades. A lot of things have been forgotten, but some remain. This is called ink in snow. Orange lights shine on the grey snow piled on frozen pavement. We stagger past trees, cars, and shops covered with silver ice. Red lanterns illuminating black ink calligraphy. Our faces stiff, movements slow, penguin steps through squeaking snow. Bubbles of white smoke rising from mouths. We step into a small handicraft shop, eyes sparkling. Two little ceramic cups in your hands, dipping bowls or perhaps candy holders. Creamy surface with black concentric circles. You gave them to me, winking and grinning, childlike. I tuck them in my pockets. We walk back into the snow. Next spring, I leave the city. I give away many things, but I keep those cups, small, round, and smooth, traveling from one city to another, one country to another. Their constant presence on my desk, a reminder of my last winter in the city, our last walk in the snow. So that's the first poem. And then this is burnt once. Orange lights, gray snow, red lanterns illuminating black ink calligraphy. Eyes sparkling, creamy surface with black concentric circles, winkling and graining. Those cups, traveling, our last, their constant presence, our last walk in the snow. And then eventually a haiku is left. Lanterns illuminating, winking and graining, their constant presence. That's the use of a traditional Asian poetic form, but of course being modified in a way that reflects how memory works.
I like that. I like that the burning is about what stays and what remains the same, and how it speaks to what is essential sometimes, or what remains, and possibly why the emotional ricochet of staying or leaving or disappearing or being disappeared. And it's beautiful how that form held that. And in other places where you're playing with white spaces, how that holds as well, and the different ways that you've toyed with. It's an absolutely beautiful book. And if you have not yet got a copy, you really should, because you really need to see how these are laid out on the page. Absolutely beautifully. Are there poems that are not included, and why? And could you please read us something from the cutting room floor?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is a good question. And we have left out some poems, but I choose 2 poems to share. And those 2 poems are, in a way, slightly more political because they address the kind of political issues of war and migration and so on. We didn't include them in this collection because of the main theme of the book. We still actually want the book to tell a personal story. Of course, personal is always political, but in a way, actually, some poems related to current news didn't make into the book. So this one was written actually, well, of course, about the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So I didn't actually focus on the war itself. At that time, I'm reading Tolstoy's War and Peace. So I'm thinking about telling the story of the impact of the war through the story of 2 people, from equinox to solstice, from autumn equinox to winter solstice, green holly shrubs dotted with red berries. Andrei wrote Natasha a letter every night, wishing her well and the baby sweet dreams. The torchlight was dim, the air frosted. From spring equinox to summer solstice, white and pink apple blossoms came and went. Natasha dreamed of Andrei every day, hoping to touch his face, hold his hand. The sun lit faintly over the debris of the city. So the next poem is is about Alan Kurdi. So you may remember about 10 years ago, actually. So well, on the seashore, a small boy's body was found. So essentially, that was the kind of across Mediterranean migration journey, because many people had to flee from their homeland, flee from the war. Like a sea lion stranded on a sandy beach, like a seabird, wings broken after a heavy storm, like a sailor falling asleep after long voyage. He lies there still, facing the ocean, limbs stretched, wet shirt and shorts glued to the body, in colors of red, white, and blue. His ears erect, listening to booming sounds of the bombs falling on his home city, waves of the Mediterranean Sea, screams of men, women, and children on the raft, singing of the mermaid deep under the sea, news readers repeatedly reporting yet another tragedy on yet another day. Thanks very much.
I feel like I once again need to hold a moment. I also want to point out that that was not his name. That was his name being anglicized. I don't remember what his name is, and my internet is playing up, so I don't want to look it up and lose thing. But his name was not Alan. That was his English people renaming things as English people do. But I won't get hung up on that. I shall move on. But yeah. What are you reading?
Oh, I'm currently actually reading books by Rosalind Anter. I'm not sure if I pronounced the name correctly, but she's visiting Nottingham at the moment for I think or she visited Nottingham for Inspire Poetry Festival. So I'm a big lover of her poems. So currently I'm reading their books.
Oh, cool. I might have to look that up. Thank you for adding the correction to his name in the chat. Thank you. I don't know how that's pronounced, but it's Aylan, and it was anglicized in all the publications to Alan. So even in death, he couldn't even be awarded the full respect of his name as his name is, as he was named. How do you look after your mental and physical well-being?
Oh, my physical and mental well-being. Well, I guess that writing poetry actually is my way to maintain health and well-being. I have a very stressful day job, and well, and also in academic writing, I do not always have the freedom to express myself. So I'm pleased that at a very critical time, I mean, during the lockdown, the poetry came to my rescue. I was able to express myself actually in poetic forms. And starting last year, I've also taken up theater actually and explore how theater can help, well, both individuals with their health and well-being and for community, whatever, cohesion and spirit and so on. So I'm pleased that well, I discovered art and literature, or rather art and literature discovered me. So it is a good way, but I recognize this may not be, well, the method for everybody. Probably everybody have to come up with their own way.
Fair enough. Thank you. What is your writing practice and how do you keep motivated?
Oh, so, well, as I said that I have a busy day job. That means I have to create space for myself. So sometimes, I mean, I write on the train and whatever, while I was waiting for the classes to start. And often, actually, I'm very productive in workshops, but poetry workshops like the workshop that we're doing. So essentially, give me a prompt and give me some time, and I'll be able to write something. I mean, good or bad. Sometimes those poems are not good. I'll just throw them away. But occasionally, I get some really good poems. I like being given a space, being surrounded by writers and creatives. And in this way, actually, it's both celebrating our creativity and also to find space for ourselves to be creative.
Ah, what book would you recommend that others should read and why?
Well, I don't have it at hand, but there's a book called Letters to Writers of Color. It may not be exact title, but essentially it is a collection of essays by writers of color giving advice on new writers, because for writers of color we often lacked confidence. And there are some rules, actually, for example, in the writing, whatever community or in the creative writing program, which may or may not work for everybody. For example, in that book, a writer talks about show not tell, and how it is actually not the only way for writing. And sometimes telling is as important as showing. So I think I can recommend that book, Letters for Writers of Color.
I don't think I've actually read that. So, yeah, you've given me something to go and hunt down. I want to invite Ashley into the conversation, if that's all right. Um, Ashley, what was it like working with Hongwei and what called you to this book? And of course, anything else you want to say about it.
So Hongwei came to one of my workshops, so I'd already met him and experienced what he could write in just 20 minutes if prompted, and was already blown away by the natural talent. What drew me to his manuscript in particular is the story, the journey, the battle between the two parts of him, the Chinese part and the English or British part, depending on which terminology you want to use. I'm very pale skinned, but I am half Spanish, so I have my own kind of diaspora in that. So it's not diasporic because we chose to live here, but that feeling of not fitting in whichever country you're in, that and both belong to you, and also fitting in both at the same time and embracing it, was absolutely what drew me to the manuscript that he sent me, and why we went with the order that we went with, because it was about embracing all of his parts and the beauty that you get from having, you know, multiculturalism within yourself, not just be surrounded by it, but in your own heart. So that is absolutely what drew me to Hongwei's work. That, and just he's so talented. Like, I was just, yeah, it was a pleasure to be editing. It wasn't a chore. Every poem was just stunning and hit me in the feels, you know. And the queer side as well. So reading Self-Portrait as a Banana, I was like, oh my God, I need to frame this poem. I need to frame the love that he has got for himself, and the idea that I'm old enough to remember when queer was a slur, and how we took that back, and the same with other words like that, that they're ours to use and we'll use them, and then you can't, they're not arrows to target us with, because we've embraced those words and we love them, and they're ours, not theirs, sort of thing. And there's a lot of that feeling within his collection, and I just really wanted to lift that and celebrate all of that and what that encompasses. So that's definitely why I went and was just, yes, yes, please, let's work together. I don't need to sit and think about this. I knew from poem one that I wanted to work with him. And the more I read, the more excited I got when I saw that it was touching on the themes that some of which are adjacent to my own life experiences, and I'm a writer but haven't necessarily written my versions, if you know what I mean. So he's inspired me, and that's a really important thing for me, is that I get inspired too, and then I feed off working with that writer and we grow together, which is definitely what I feel like I did with Hongwei. He was a pleasure to work with. Yeah, no trouble whatsoever. Yeah, absolutely enjoyed the editing process and the back and forth of discussing, you know, the pros and cons of which poems work and why I wanted the title to be so bold and such a celebration. Because you're quite polite and seems quiet until you get to know him, and then there's a lion within, and that's his poetry, and it roars. And I just wanted to celebrate that and have Hongwei roar for himself and for everybody else that's, you know, around the world experiencing similar things, whether it's with England or America or, you know, whatever country that they're living in. And also for those that haven't experienced it. That's the really important thing. We know what it feels like to not fit in either place and to feel unwelcomed, and also to feel welcomed as well, and how those two things sit side by side. Those that don't experience are the ones that need to hear it the most, and reaching them people and getting them to sit down and go, oh, I'm going to buy this book because I've never experienced that. I want to understand it. And that is, you know, a big part of, you know, the people that I want my poets to reach out to. So yeah, I got lucky in that he thought that I was the right editor and publisher for him as well. So yeah, thank you for trusting me, Hongwei, is what I would say. I
Thank
think
you.
that
The
answers those
love is
questions.
mine, really. Thank you very much. Ashley has been a big champion of my work, as well as a very meticulous editor. Just now, while I was preparing for this event, I looked at my folder. My folder has got 10 editing versions, probably more, because simply because there are some small edits, etc. I didn't actually name the versions, 10 versions of the manuscript. And then eventually, actually, when I even received a proof copy, and then we marked things on the proof copy too, and then that goes back, and we have to edit on the proof, whatever. Ashley has to edit on the whatever template, whatever. So I really appreciate. Thank you for the time, patience, and care you have given to my poetry. I really appreciate that.
It's very important for me that we spend time on the quality of the work as well. There's a few indie publishers out there that will receive the manuscript and just print it and take a chunk of the profit, and there's no love in there. You open it up, it's riddled with typos and it's not been loved at all, and that's such an important step, because for me it's about getting the best for the poet. I want Hongwei to still love this book in 10 years time and not be thinking, oh, I wish we hadn't rushed that. That's for me to worry about. That's my time and I'm happy to spend it because it's worth it. Yeah, that's a big thing for me, is the quality, and everything gets thought through specifically for each individual poet. So for Hongwei, the colouring of the cover and the change of artwork last minute, I took one look at the artwork and went, amazing, and also we get to lift a Chinese queer artist. Heck yes, scrap that. Love the pink cover, but no, this speaks more. So being willing to make those last minute changes, I think, is really important to me for my
Thank
authors.
you.
Does that answer? I think that was everything you asked me, PJ, mate.
Pretty much, pretty much. Yeah, I appreciate the rigor that you both brought to it, and it shows in the quality, in the layout, in the way they sit beside each other, in the way they're arranged from front to back and in sections. The rigor shows, and I appreciate that because it was such a joy to read it, such a pleasure to work my way from front to back and then come back and go this, that, and do a little hop through as well, and to read it in different ways. And it worked every time, and I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. So thank you both, and we are pretty much gonna close off this section with Hongwei reading us out. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining the conversation. Thank you, Hongwei, for having this conversation with us. So I will now invite you to read us a few poems and maybe tell us a bit of what you were writing out about, a little bit of your editing process and why it appeared in the section of the book that you put it.
Okay, great. So let me again share the screen. I'll probably, because of time, I'll probably share 2 poems which reflects the editing process. I mean, of course, every poem has been edited again and again, but I'll use this poem as an example. This is called The Red Moon, which describes my homecoming experience every summer when I visit my parents in China. Red Moon. I visit my family in China every summer when the moon is a red hot sickle. Mom turns the aircon to its maximum, a continuous vibration of cool air. Dad takes out watermelon from the fridge, white frost crystallizing on red cubes. Sister throws all my clothes into the washer, then hangs them up like festival banners. The big, white, fluffy Samoyed sits on my feet, head rubbing against my legs. I think of home in the UK, the damp English weather, the sleepless nights, and smile. So the main change for this poetry is the title Red Moon and some and those color words. So in the original version, all those colors are not that obvious, but by accentuating all those different colors, such as red and white, red cubes and white frost and so on and so forth. So hopefully it gives a strong visual imagery. And another aspect that I would like to mention is at the end, the damp English weather, the sleepless nights, and smile. So originally they were written in sentence forms, but now we break down the sentence into phrases and make it more powerful. So that's the Red Moon, which is about homegoing experience. And the next point that I'm going to share is a mist. Remember, I talked about the second and third part consists of a sequence of a relationship from 2 people meeting for the first time to when they break up. So this is one of the kind of break up poems. Originally, this poem was written in the kind of more conventional form with lots of line breaks. And Ashley suggested that we turn this poem into a prose poem with a lot of white spaces to showcase first how mist works, and second how memory works, because after all, this is remembering what has passed, what has happened. So there's a lot of gaps in memory. The prose poem, the poetic form of the prose poem really captures the feeling. Mist. As we sit in silence, try to finish the last sip of tea. As the music changes, the noise from the bar starts to grow louder. As you look down, stare at the folded lines of the tartan tablecloth. As your right hand reaches for the jacket on the back of the chair, you mumble some words I can only vaguely guess. As I stand up, accept your hand, give it a feeble squeeze. Your hand is freezing. We used to hug each other. As you zip up your jacket, push the door open without looking back. The air must be cold as my eyes follow the movement of your body, smaller and blurrier with each stride until myths take over. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I will stop the recording here.